Good evening. My name is Robin Muir. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, I want to welcome you to the South Kitsap School Board District 3 virtual forum. Tonight's forum is being recorded by both the League of Women Voters Kitsap and BCAT, Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, and will be available for viewing on the League's website, which is lwv-a.org, and on BCAT's cable broadcast. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes political parties or candidates. The League does take positions on matters of public policy and advocates for those positions after careful study. Formed in the 1920s as an outgrowth of the women's suffrage movement, the League's purpose was and is to this day to educate and inform citizens so that they may more fully participate in our democracy. As a membership organization, we depend on our members to organize and run events such as this. We invite and encourage both women and men to become members and help us work on our basic belief that our form of government depends upon the informed and active participation of its citizens. Joining us this evening are the candidates for the South Kitsap School District position number 3. Herbert Willett, Christopher Lemke, and Brian Pickard. The other candidates were all contacted several times. One chose not to return our invitation, and the other 3 are hopefully joining us a little bit late. So the rules for the forum are this. All candidates will be given 1.5 minutes to make an opening statement. Following the opening remarks, I will ask questions that have been submitted by the public, and you'll have 1 minute for each of those questions. And we will take turns with who goes first, so we'll be answering on a rotating basis. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to make a closing statement. Please keep an eye on the digital timer. If time expires before you finish, please finish your sentence and then yield the floor. Each of you has our thanks for stepping up and running for elected office. Please be respectful of each other, refrain from personal attacks, and address your remarks to the moderator or audience. So we're going to get started. The opening statements are going to be given in the order that you appear in the voter's guide, which will be the same as the order that is on the ballot. So first up will be Herb Willett.
Good afternoon. My name is Herb Willett. I'm running for this office because I think I can benefit the community as a whole, especially in our educational system. And I know we've been doing things for a long period of time. But let me say, I've been in this community for over 20 years, but I just kind of follow things. I had a couple of kids who've gone through school system, Portia Moniz and also Christopher Willett. Portia is now teaching in Eastern Washington, and she will be starting her externship this year in South Kitsap. Christopher is a lieutenant in the Air Force. He's a JAG officer, so he's been there for a year now. He's stationed in Okinawa. But I feel my time here and being able to spend going through school with them, because I attended every school that they went to, kind of go show up, picnics and things like that. And I've seen South Kitsap, and I noticed that it's a big school, but it's a big school, but it's not big enough for the kids that they have. And I noticed the last time there was a levy was when Miss Bev Cheney was in office. That's been quite a few years. Somehow we need to think about how can we get to that point. And I think we'll do that by getting out into the community and speaking with people and not staying in our little corners of our world. That's being a person on the school board. And I will yield my 7 seconds to the next person.
Forget that mute button. Mr. Lemke, you are next.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to the League of Women's Voters for having this opportunity. I also would like to thank all the other candidates that are online for stepping up and wanting to serve South Kitsap School District, especially all of our students that need the board support very much. I'm running for school board because I think there's a need for some experience on the South Kitsap School Board right now. with the combined service of less than 8 years, the remaining 3 board members, that's all the experience they have. I served South Kitsap School District on the board for 12 years. I held all the positions on the school board. I'm a graduate of Leadership WASDA, which is the state organization for school boards. And I also train brand new school board members. So I bring 40 years of experience, 12 years on the board, president of South Kitsap Citizens for Quality Education, serving on all levels of the school district on PTAs, PTSOs, and PACs with parents in the community to do what's best for each and every student every day. I also have worked with the legislators. I've also worked on levy and bond campaigns. And most of all, I continue to be involved with kids. I have 2 grandchildren that are at the high school right now. One's a baseball player, one's a soccer player. I believe the most important thing we can do as a community is to have world-class schools and have a board that functions as a cohesive team with the superintendent. And as a lot of us might know, that the district right now, the board. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Mr. Pickard.
Thank you. My name is Brian Pickard, and I've lived in the South Kitsap School District in Port Orchard area for 33 plus years. I know the community, I know the people, I know the pulse of what's going on here in this community. I've spent 38 years in public education, serving public education, 30 of them in the South Kitsap School District. It gives me a keen insight on where we have been, where we need to go. I've served on a variety of boards. Currently, I'm on South Kitsap Helpline. As a member, I'm past president, and I'm also serving on a global board, Point Hope, which supports children in need. I've also been on the Elementary School Principal Association of Washington board. I served well over 15 years on that. 14 of those years, I was federal relations rep, where I had conversations and advocated for public education with members of Congress. I also am a past board member on the Kitsap Community Resources. My experience in public education provide a clear and practical insight into what's needed, what it takes to help students and staff be successful. I don't believe there's a candidate that has similar experience or in-depth experience as I do. I listen to understand prior to seeking understanding, and collaboration and shared decision-making have always been a part of the way I operate and that I work. I believe in open and honest conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Burk, I'm so glad you were able to get on. I apologize for the mix-up. It's been kind of a crazy web kind of day, I think. So we are doing opening statements. Each candidate has a minute and a half. And then we'll ask, I'll ask questions that have been submitted. You'll have 1 minute to answer those, which we'll do on a rotating basis. And then at the end, we'll have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. And the other 3 have already made their opening remarks. So if you'd like to do that, that would be terrific.
Thank you. And I want to also thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I'd like to see more involvement in the school board and the school system, and it's good to see the League of Women Voters being involved and inviting us to this forum. I have a big heart for children and want to make sure that the opportunity for kids is available. I'd like to see the board be more diverse and have more of a business presence and different occupations than just teachers and administrators, although they're great, but I think they're a little bit overrepresented. And I'd like to offer my time and abilities. I've been involved in school construction for over 20 years, and I got a good insight to some of the ways the school district could save some money with some valued engineering. I know that there is a need for more schools in the system and want to be involved in trying to get the funds to build those schools and to build them efficiently. Also, there's a kind of a crossroads in the beginning of the 21st century, and there's a lot of big issues that we'll probably get into later tonight. But I think we just need to be involved in trying to make great decisions to make sure that we have the children that are going to compete in the 21st century. I want to make sure that the teachers have the resources they need, the union has the resources they need to produce the product that us in the community are looking for.
Terrific. Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to start the question and answer portion. And these have been submitted by people in the community through our website. And there were a lot more questions that were submitted than we'll probably have time to ask tonight, but we'll do our best to get through as many as we possibly can. So Mr. Lemke, you're going to be first in this one. And the question is, what do you believe you can bring to the South Kitsap School Board that others won't bring?
Well, I think the adage, there's no substitute experience, is very valuable. So I will bring a wealth of experience of the 12 years I've already served on the board, plus 40 years of working within South Kitsap schools. I'm a graduate of Leadership WASDA, which is the state organization for school board directors. I've held all the chairs on the school board. I bring a wealth of knowledge working with the state legislature, the state superintendent of public instruction, and the state school board. I also bring a knowledge of the South Kitsap community, all of the 30,000 plus voters and their desires for our kids and our schools. And I also bring a knowledge of safety, well-being for each and every student every day through working with the schools when I served on the school board. I think the other thing I would bring that's very, very important is I served with 6 superintendents. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, just I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a little timer up in the, that will tell you what your time allotment is. Mr. Burk.
Thank you. I haven't, maybe I'm not looking quite correct. I haven't seen the timer, but I appreciate it. I'll certainly look on the screen now.
All right. So watch for it. Mr. Burk?
Yes. I think that that I will bring a desire to represent the community, to represent the parents, to make sure that the children have representation. I've not been a professional educator, and I appreciate them. They're very valuable, but I'm a businessman and I'm a negotiator. I negotiate contracts all the time. So I would like to be involved in representing the parents and the children in some of these very difficult issues. And some of them, like I said before, we'll be getting into tonight. And I want to have a little bit of a different perspective than maybe just what the people that have been inside for so long that maybe haven't seen from the outside, kind of just see if we can look at this at a little bit different perspective. I think that a lot of the kids that are blue collar kids needs opportunity for the trades, and that's where my background is, and it's where I'll devote some of my time. All the candidates are very, have great ability, but I think I would represent the children and the parents very well.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard.
Yeah, thank you. What I bring to it is that I know public schools, having served for 38 years. I know the inner workings of them. I think it's important that there be at least one member on the board that has that, so that decisions can be, filtered, if you will, to take a look at to say, okay, what's the impact? I know how different boards work, serving on different boards. I know that it's important that boards don't micromanage, their organizations. We let the professionals do the work. We set the policies and the procedures and work in that way and things. But again, with my work in the different boards within schools, I would bring what no one else could bring, which is that the inner workings, how things work, how they maybe wouldn't work as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Willett.
Thank you again. Well, what I bring to the school board is innovation and diversity. I believe that we have been doing school board issues. People that insiders have an inside view and they're always looking at, I think it needs to take another course. It needs a fresh look, an outside look to say, hey, I'm not saying I'm going to fix the whole world or fix outside. I like to get in, see what's going on, understand, and then make some changes. And also, one of the things I've learned over my career to deal with difficulty and hard to deal with people and bring those to a agreement as well as opportunities. When things are hard to deal with, I usually kind of work something out because I have a pretty good relationship with folks. I seem to get along with people really well. I've spent 40 years as a military contractor, worked outside the US. I worked in every state in the US, and I've seen a lot of school system, and I think I can bring a lot to this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, question number 2. What educational experience, if any, do you bring to the board? Have you held or do you hold any educational positions or degrees? And do you have any experience serving on a board of directors? So let's see here. First will be Mr. Burk. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lemke. Nope. I'm so sorry. Who's first? Should be Christopher. Mr. Burk is first, yes.
Yes, I have served on different boards, and I have a high school degree, and I went into the apprenticeship program, did a 4-year apprenticeship program, and became a journeyman plumber. I'm a member of Local 32 Plumbers and Pipe Fitters in Seattle. Worked for some large mechanical companies, became a superintendent, a general foreman. We did general contracting also and built a few schools. And then now I own my own company. So those are some of the things that I've done that I think would be very important, and some of the background that I have. Like I said, I have a blue collar passion, and I want to make sure that the blue collar kids in our community are represented on the board. I think there's lots of programs or lots of opportunities that we could explore together and see if we can make it better. We have a great school system, and I just want to make it better.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard.
Thank you. Yes, I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in elementary education. I also have a master's degree in educational administration as well. As far as experience on boards, I've mentioned in my opening comments, but again, I've served on and been in leadership roles in all of them at a local, state, national, even now global level. Those experiences have helped form my viewpoint in how to work with people in different situations. School boards are unique to to boards in that they truly are a policy setter. They to set that and set directions and expectations. But again, my education experience, and then I've served in 30 years in public school administration as an elementary principal for 27 years, and at the district level for 3 years.
Terrific. Thank you. Please.
Hi again. I bring a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering technology, and I have a master's in business administration with a minor in technology management. My son and I are working on a nonprofit corporation called the Willett Foundation, and I'm a board member there. I also have ran several contracts, and we're at interaction with the federal government. As I go through the job, I was maintaining financials and overseeing the job as we went. It's more like a blue collar worker, but I was the guy who kind of did the scheduling and made sure everything came to view. Doing that, I was able to get a new site, go do something, and get it all completed. I was pretty good at getting things done, working with people to solve problems so we can meet our deadlines and our dates. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke?
Would it be possible to have you repeat the question? It's been just a little bit.
Yes, I'd be happy to. It's what educational experience, if any, do you bring to the board? Have you held or do you hold any educational positions or degrees? Do you have any experience serving on a board of directors?
So I have served on probably 10 or 15 boards, but I'll just recite probably the most pertinent to this position. As far as education, I'm an apprentice graduated from Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. I've also graduated from Olympic College, and I've taken some credits towards a 4-year degree, also at Olympic College, the program they offer. As earlier stated, I served South Kitsap School Board for 12 years. I served South Kitsap Citizens for Quality Education for 8 years, holding all chairs. I served on elementary, Mulnix Ridge PTA as a president and vice president for 5 years. Served at the junior high level on the PAC, which is Parent Advisory Committee, at the middle school and at the high school level. I also education-wise, being a graduate from Leadership WASDA, which is the State School Directors Association, and also train brand new school board directors. In addition to that, in my job as a resource manager,
Time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It should be, if you use the gallery view on your computer screen, then you should be able to see the box with the timer. If that is, hopefully that.
I have tried a number of things. I will just do better and not go over, ma'am. I'll try. I think I'm on the gallery view. I just don't see your timer, but I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Left.
This next question is, what is, in your view, the most important job of a school board member? And the first to answer will be Mr. Pickard.
All right. Well, I answered all kinds. So I think the most important job is to be a listener and seeking to understand the issues, whether it be from the staff, community, parents, really anybody, to take that information in as far as decision-making. People that are involved and impacted by a decision should have input and a role into it. I believe that that really ties into the concept that school board must be policymakers, and that we again, I'm going to repeat, we don't micromanage. We don't come in and tell the staff how to do things. We set that policy, we set the expectations, and then that's to be carried out. And then of course we have careful monitoring of that as well. I also believe I work incredibly well with other people, and that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Willett. You're on mute.
Okay. I think to be a great leader, you have to be a great listener. You have to be able to talk to people at all levels, because you need to get an understanding of what's going on. So once you understand what's actually going on as an organization, then you can offer suggestions. And I will say again, a good leader has to learn to follow, because you don't always know, so you have to follow someone's path to get an insight of where you're headed. I have, in my past, dealt with people. I kind of have a relationship, try to get along with people to make things work for the betterment of the organization I'm working with. I think if you have great relationships, you can get things done. When people are feeling comfortable, they tend to give you more. When there is some distraction or some friction, you seem to pull back. So I think I can bring all these things to fruition as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see here. Next should be Mr. Lemke.
So as a school board member, you're one of 5 governing members of a school district. Your job on the board then is to cohesively work with that 5-member team to come up each and every day and make decisions what is best for kids. The other thing that a board member needs to do as part of that governing team is ensure that you hire a superintendent who's your only employee, who will run the district on a day-by-day basis and advise the board what is best for the district and the students within the district. In addition to that, the next most important thing school board members do is make sure that teachers and all staff have the resources they need to do their job on an everyday basis and be as safe as possible. And then the last most important thing would be very responsible for levies and bonds and make sure that our community knows our needs and desires and what we need for our children, so each and every child has a chance to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Burke.
I think the most important job the school board member has is to remember that he represents the community. He represents the parents. The parents are what make a great school district. And if you represent the parents well and you listen to their input, you'll have a successful school. South Kitsap has one of the most pride in their schools as any school district in the state. People have a lot of pride in Kitsap. When they had graduation, they had parents lined up down on Bay Street. Parents want to be involved, and parents that are involved want to vote for levies. They want to build new schools. They want to support the teachers, and they want to make sure the teachers have all the things that they need. And when the parents are involved, they make sure that their kids are prepared to go to school. They're involved with the teachers getting the homework to make sure that their children are well prepared. And I think as a board member, there's a lot of administrative things we've got to do, but the most important thing is represent the parents.
All right, thank you. All right, next question. What are the 5 most important needs or improvements necessary for the district? How would you prioritize those needs or improvements? First is Mr. Willett.
Priorities I would think for the district would be first, listen, determine what's needed for our kids. Because my slogan is, the success of the kids is our future. Understanding what the kids need and make sure the teachers have adequate equipment to teach the student. It's like you go from high to low, go up the hierarchy. And as a superintendent level, he's looking at the day-to-day basis. He needs to tell us, hey, what needs to be done? And we as a board member, as running the board, you say, hey, these are the things that are required to get the students what they need. But the students are our future. And if we do not prepare the students for our future, it's going to only affect us. And we talk about a lot of other things that are political, in my opinion, but we need to concentrate mainly on the students. Do they have a balance? Like, parents are crucial in developing our school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke?
Thank you, ma'am. My top 5, and I believe they may not necessarily be in order, but I think first of all, I would say make sure each and every student, and I'm going to use the word equity, that means each student has their needs met on an everyday basis. And when you meet the needs of every student, then you give them a very high chance of being successful. With that said, then we need to have the staff, and most importantly, the teachers who leads the classroom and leads those students to have what they need each and every day. And when those needs are met, then we have to make sure we have safe buildings, clean facilities, that it's a clean area and a facility that is conducive for learning. And then I think probably my next one would be to ensure that all parents have an opportunity to, thank you, ma'am.
Let's see, Mr. Burke.
I'm a businessman, and I'm not going to pretend that I know the 5 most important things, but in business and in construction, you have to be able to assess what's going on quickly and decide how you need to resolve the problems. So there would be a learning curve to know what the 5 most important ones are, but the obvious ones is, do we need new schools? Do we need a new high school? I want to sit down and talk to the professionals and ask them what their opinion is of those kinds of things. I want to assess what the school needs from professionals, work with the community, and see if I can get the support of the community to provide the things that the professionals think we need. I want to make sure that the teachers are compensated. The teachers are one of our greatest assets in the community. And I want to make sure that they're being compensated correctly. And I want to make sure that the union has all the assets they need to provide for the teachers adequate compensation. So I want to make sure that the teachers and the children are well represented.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard.
Thank you. You start listing things and you leave things off. So, but 5 things in no particular order is academic achievement. That's what we're about. We're about student learning, helping students learn and grow. Equity, and that's across the board, not just in our schools, but with our staffing and our community, and providing the resources that our staff and our students need. Another would be facilities. We have aging facilities. Our newest facilities are 30 years old. They need to be safe. We need to be able to accommodate growth. And so we really need to take a look at remodeling and building and those types of things. Safety is a huge piece, more so than ever before. We need to continue to look at that. And then also transparent communication, because that goes through everything. And that's with community, parents, students, and staff.
Apologize for that. Next question. Skills, and what importance do you attach to critical thinking skills for curriculum and instruction of K-12 students in South Kitsap schools? First will be Mr. Lemke.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't hear that question. Can you repeat, please?
I'd be happy to. How would you define critical thinking skills, and what importance do you attach to critical thinking skills for curriculum and instruction of K-12 students in South Kitsap schools?
So I believe critical thinking is important, and I think we have to understand that each one of our 8,900 students, their critical thinking pathways are going to be different. So we need to make sure we offer that opportunity for all students to be able to express themselves through critical thinking that works for them, because, like I say, each and every one of those are different. With that said, then in the classroom, whatever the subject may be, we want to ensure that, one, all of our teachers have the training necessary so they can ensure that those students and the way they communicate through critical thinking is understood and listened to. I think also then if there is a possible offering of a class for critical thinking across the curriculum, I think that would be a wonderful thing to incorporate.
Mr. Burke.
Well, I'm sure critical thinking is important. I'm not going to sit here and represent myself as a teacher with a master's degree and understand what the students' needs are completely in this topic. But I'm a businessman, and I would listen to the teachers to find out what they need in this particular area. I know critical thinking at work is very important. So anything I could do to support teachers in this process, teaching critical thinking skills would be very important. And I would have to rely on the teachers, the experts in this area, and make sure that I'm supporting them correctly. I think my job is to support the teachers, listen to the teachers, find out what they need, and do the best I can to support them.
Thank you. Let's see, where was I? Mr. Pickard.
All right. Well, students need to have experience and opportunities to learn how to learn. And from that, they become problem solvers. And problem solving goes throughout all curriculums and all aspects and interaction and things. And they need those skills, obviously going through school, whether that's just K-12, beyond K-12 as far as formal education, or in apprenticeship programs, like we've got such powerful ones here with the shipyard, among other places. When I was principal at South Colby, I spent 23 years there. There was a big piece of what we did. We taught kids how to learn, how to find out information, how to put it together, how to present it. It's skills that can be taught and practiced in kindergarten all the way through beyond 12th grade and into their future.
Mr. Willett.
Thank you. Critical thinking. Our kids need to be empowered with critical thinking, ability to develop skills so they can think beyond the scope that they're in. Education is something to open the mind. I think critical thinking allows you to look at things differently, and sometimes go a little bit outside of the box. So it opens you up to explore. So if we can get the critical thinking for the math, the reading, and the sciences, and they'll think about it, just look at it as a whole, and say making sure they'll get the best that they're supposed to. If they're critical thinking, they will look at things from both sides. What if? I always like to say, what if? And if you get the what if portion of it, you can figure out most things. And I think it allows them to think outside of the box and to look at things in detail. You have to be detail-oriented, make them detail-oriented in most things that they do in their life. They have to be detailed to survive. And that'll be the best thing for our students.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What would you support and not support in a comprehensive curriculum program for K-12? Mr. Burk, you get the first crack at that.
Could you repeat that one more time? Sorry.
I'd be happy to. What would you support and not support in a comprehensive curriculum program for K-12?
I think having an environment for learning is important. In construction and in business, we're teaching adults constantly. In fact, I had a meeting this morning working with young men, trying to teach them how to get to the next level, how to be superintendents, how to run big jobs. So learning and putting people in good environments is an important part to learning. And I think learning isn't just in school, it's forever. And I think we need to make sure that kids have a great opportunity to learn.
Thank you. Trying to get that was Dave Burk. Mr. Pickard.
All right, thank you. Didn't finish making my notes here. I believe that a full breadth of academic subjects and studies be available in a comprehensive school. We need to have hands-on learning. You learn by doing, by being able to read, write, calculate, problem solve. Organizational skills are a huge piece that need to be taught in all subject areas, being able to put things together and manage time and those types of things. So, in the area of language arts, math, science, vocational, technology, We need to have options for kids, because as Mr. Burk has said, and I agree with him, is that we need to have, other than just going to college, we need to have vocational skills and activity. In South Kitsap High School has one of the best in the entire state. We have some incredible options and programs for kids.
Thank you. Mr. Willett.
I think a comprehensive curriculum for K through 12 would be understanding that all kids learn and attain information differently. So therefore, you should cater to the students' needs. Some kids are hands-on, some kids can grab something right off the top and they can go with it. I think the education should be adapted to the child's level. Well, some kids can survive in a mainstream school. Some may need to be in a charter school. Some may need to do trades. College is not for everybody, but I do believe the skills that we should teach, which should allow our kids to finish high school and make a choice in where they want to go to make a living for themselves and to bring something back to our community. That's my thoughts on a comprehensive learning.
Thank you. And Mr. Lemke?
Thank you. I think most of all, for full comprehensive learning, first of all, we got to stress the basics. Reading, writing, arithmetic are very, very valuable. In addition to that, a strong, at the high school level, career and technical arts program, CTE program is really important, along with physical education. History and civics also would be top priorities for me. Talked earlier about equity. Equity means making sure each student has a pathway for success through their learning. So when they graduate from high school, they have an opportunity to be successful in the community of South Kitsap. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, it's another long one, so if we need to repeat it, certainly ask. Do you think our schools are doing a good job of preparing students to live in a diverse community and to get along with people from many different racial, ethnic, and religious backgrounds? If not, what could they do to improve? First is Mr. Pickard. I think you need to unmute.
Missed the button there. Sorry about that. I think that our schools are doing a good job. We can do better. We need to be able to explore and communicate and talk with people so that we can understand other people's perspectives, their experiences. We live in a world that is so much smaller than really, and I'm going to assume that we're all within somewhat the same age. It's a lot different than we were growing up, and we can communicate with people across the other side of the world instantly. We need to be able to know how to communicate, how to work together, and share ideas and collaborate.
Thank you. Mr. Willett?
I do agree with Mr. Pickard on that. I do think that we need to be able to get along. I think we ought to consider diversity. And I think diversity should be and can be, if worked on, because diversity will allow kids to understand, people can understand other people. I think a diverse education, a diverse school system will prompt togetherness, and people with different backgrounds, different ideas could come together, and I've seen some good results from these type of things. Okay, I think diversification will make for a better society, a better school. It will allow people with different ideas to come together and come up with the same objection. You have different ways of looking at things, but you come up with the same results. So that's my thought on that.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke?
Thank you, ma'am. There was a great article in the Port Orchard Independent last week talking specifically about the school board and an issue that comes up on the July 21st meeting specific to equity and the board and the superintendent working with the community and a group of folks on a committee to ensure that within the body of South Kitsap School District, we are doing the best job we can with equity. The superintendent and the board are going to be asked to adopt a resolution. I believe the superintendent would like to see the board create a policy specific to and bring it to the forefront of equity. I think the other thing is important at the high school, students do a very, very great job being very diverse and accepting other students for the most part. And when there is a difficulty, I believe the school district does a good job of handling that. So as adults, as community members, as teachers, staff, and across the board, we can learn from our students. There's a group of kids at the high school right now that have a wonderful program.
Thank you. And Mr. Burk?
Well, I think we're fortunate to have Bremerton, the naval shipyards. It brings a lot of different members of the community from different parts of the country, different parts of the state. And so because of the shipyards, we have become very diverse. And I think the school district has done a good job of teaching history about some of the issues that we had. And I think teaching history about some of the struggles that have happened over the last 60 years is important. We should make sure our children understand some of the struggles that we went through. I remember busing. I remember looking out my elementary school in the 5th grade and seeing the first buses come. So I want to make sure that our kids know the history of some of the struggles of the civil rights movement. It's very important that they understand that we've come a long ways and we've got a long ways to go. But I think in all, the school district is doing a good job, and I would listen to the superintendent and ask to find out if there's any other things we could do to improve it.
Thank you. All right, next question. Do you believe that teachers and administrators should be required to take anti-bias training? Why or why not? First person is Mr. Willett.
That's a tough one. I saw a news media talk about this anti-bias. I think diversity training could help a lot of these things. And I don't think per se that it should be mandatory to take an anti-bias, to take a course like that. I think people should understand where they're coming from. And I guess when you in an environment, one would know, well, your colleague would know if this person would need it or not. And maybe there have to be some communication between the people in the workforce to say, hey, this person have this way. We need to understand ourselves as well as the people we work with. So if you understand that, then you'll know who may or may not need this. And sometimes the administrator could say, someone may need this type of training if they display the behavior that would say such. That's my thought on that.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke. You need to unmute.
Thank you, ma'am. There was just recent legislation passed at the last legislative section that requires staff, including school board members, this type of training to be documented and done. I believe training when necessary across all of the staff would be beneficial. I don't think it'd have to necessarily be, a huge undertaking, but there could be a training module provided for all staff, even if they had questions themselves specific to this subject, they could readily access it in this type of communication world we live in, and do an online class if necessary. So yes, I think in some cases it's necessary, and yes, our state legislature thinks so too, and they passed a law that's going to require it this next school year.
Thank you. Mr. Burk.
I would hope that our teachers wouldn't need anti-bias training in the 21st century. I would think that it wouldn't be required. I think we have the greatest teachers in the world. I think there's no better teachers than South Kitsap. And I don't really think that there's a lot of need for bias. I think we have great teachers. I think we have great community. I think people understand differences of opinions, difference of cultures. And I think we have a great community. I would hope not. But if I became a board member, I would listen to the superintendent and try to resolve any issues that he might have and feel that was necessary. But to be honest with you, I would hope not.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard.
All right. Senate Bill 5044, which was passed this fall, Mr. Lemke referred to that, or this fall, excuse me, this past spring, it was in May, actually requires training for really quite a bit of training for school boards, which I think is at first I kind of thought, and I thought, well, no, that's a great idea, but then also staff. Training in areas such as equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism, cultural competency, diversity, and every district in the state of Washington will be required to have a committee to be able to plan these, have them so that they're appropriate. It's not everything at once or anything like that, but that committee, if I'm elected, I hope that I can be on that committee and a representative of the board. But it's going to be a requirement, and we're planning for it.
Thank you. All right, the next question. In the past, the school board has placed a bond issue on the ballot several times to raise money to build a second high school, only to see the measure narrowly defeated. Do you want to see such a bond in the future? And how will you know when the timing is right? The first person will be Mr. Lemke.
First of all, do we need a second high school? Do we need great facilities? Do we need some new facilities? I would say South Colby, being one of the oldest schools and probably one of the most unsafe schools, and we have adjoining property, we could build a new school there. The school district had a high of 11,680 students. The student enrollment is down below 8,900 students right now. So to pass the bond measure, we have to understand for the community and the taxpayer that we'd have to justify that second high school based on enrollment with the state of Washington. So what we need to make sure then, if we run a bond measure, it provides the very best learning atmosphere either at the existing high school or a second high school when student enrollment will provide state funding and our community will support a bond based on that criteria.
Thank you. Mr. Burk?
Well, of course we need a new high school. I'm a contractor and I love to build, but I'm not necessarily sure that one's required at the moment. Like Christopher said, our enrollment's down, and we would have to look at the necessity at the moment. I think in the past, it would have been nice to have passed it. The construction costs have gone through the roof. So by waiting, it's costing probably double than what it would have cost 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. And so if we need one, we need to look at building one, finding the finances. I would support that. And then I would make sure that we built it cost effectively. I've seen a lot of waste in school construction and would have some expertise to work with the design team to make sure that we were getting our money's worth. But I would have to, like you say, like Christopher said, talk to the superintendent, find out what the enrollment is and what the needs are at the moment. But I'd love to build one.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard?
Thank you. Currently, there's a facilities review committee going on. I'll be very, very interested to hear the outcomes and recommendations from them, because again, it's a community and staff committee. One of the things that, you don't have to drive very far down the road and see all the growth, all the houses, all the apartments and those types of things. The fast ferries, we have families, we have people moving into our area. We need new facilities. We need to modernize. We need new facilities. I believe we need a new and second high school. Equity is also a facility issue. And currently we don't meet that with some of our aging facilities. We need facilities that meet our needs for STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And we need them for our kids to be prepared for their future.
Thank you. Mr. Willett?
I agree with Christopher. He talked about enrollment is down. If we have the capacity to do what we need to do within the school system, I would say no, we don't. But we have an aging school, and we need to move with the times. Technology is moving. We're into the 21st century. We need to have a facility that's going to accommodate us, take us into the 21st century, so that our kids can get the education and have the equipment that they need to get them to the next level. If we don't have these things, then we can't get there. But one would have to ask, do we have an overcrowding problem in our high school? Is it overcrowded? If that's the case, then the answer speaks for itself. But if we're not overcrowded, then are we utilizing our space as efficient as we should? Those questions need to be asked and answered. And once we get those answers, we can determine if a high school is needed. I believe we need one just because of its age. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is a follow-up to that. In light of your answers, there's a lot of development in the pipeline in South Kitsap. So how would you plan for facilities to meet those new needs as they become necessary? And first is Mr. Burk.
Hey, could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. There's a lot of development in the pipeline in South Kitsap. Where do you stand on new facilities in light of these impending or possibly impending needs?
Yeah, I think your question was that there's a lot of new construction and a lot of movement into our area, and the population, I believe, is going to grow substantially. I think this has been a small hidden community. I wish it would stay that way, but I think they found us and they're coming. And so therefore, we're going to have to build schools. There's no doubt that construction is booming here, and we are going to need new schools. We want to make sure that we have schools that are safe, they're modern, like everybody said. And I truly believe that, yes, we're going to have to build schools, and I would like to be involved in trying to get community support, trying to get that information to the parents, to the community, and try to raise the funds that it's going to take to build those. But we have an amazing community, and I don't want to see us not build the things that are going to get us to the 21st century. But like I said before, we need to do that cost effectively.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard?
Yeah, first of all, I think we need to take our lead from the facilities review committee that I've mentioned, take a look at what their recommendations are, sort through all of that, and there's going to be a lot of work with that. We need to be prepared, and we can't be standing or being caught flat-footed and unprepared. We see it coming. We know it's coming. We've known it's coming for years. slowed a little bit, but here it comes. The pipeline is open, and you can just see it by the building that's going on. We need to be proactive, and so that we're ready for the students that are here now and the students that are coming in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Willett?
Okay, I agree with Mr. Pickard. We have to wait for the review, wait for the data to come back so we can see where we are. But we're doing a lot of building here in South Kitsap. Now the question is, this is a retirement area as well. Are we doing it for, does the building consist of retirement areas or the families coming in? But I will say, we need to look forward. We need to look ahead, because when families decide that they want to move, they look at what is the school system like. Okay, when I moved here, I decided where I'm living because I like Muir Elementary School. I thought it was a good school. That was part of my decision and where I was going to live. So when people are coming to South Kitsap or wherever they choose to go, they're going to look at the school system, because children are our future. So if I can give my kids the best education, then that's where I need to go. So we need to consider those type of things.
Thank you. And Mr. Lemke?
I think a comprehensive review that's being taken place right now by the Facilities Review Committee is a wonderful starting point. I think another thing is, I was the president of the school board with Michelle Reed when we narrowly missed passing the second high school bond by about 20 votes. So I know how important that is, and working in the community to get that done. I think what South Kitsap can do is take some of the aging facilities and start with a capital levy, which only requires 50% plus one. Build maybe an elementary school, I suggested earlier, maybe South Colby. Demonstrate to the public trust that we got the job done. We got it right. We got a 21st century school. And in the future, we're going to need new schools, perhaps a second high school, and we'll have to have a bond measure, because a high school will cost quite a bit more money than you can do with a capital levy. And make sure to get the trust of the public, get all the community involved. Start small. We know we have an aging elementary school that's been identified in the past, and get it done.
Thank you. Next question. Has the pandemic and its effect on education made you think more broadly about ways to improve our school system? For instance, continuing to use internet platforms for virtual learning for students who so choose. I believe that they're referring to staying on a virtual platform as opposed to attending in person. And the first will be Mr. Pickard.
Thank you. Certainly a silver lining out of the pandemic is, we in education was forced to look at new and different ways, and was incredible innovation that went on with the teachers and the staff in figuring out ways. Incredible patience out of our parents and our families and things. One of the things that I think we can take a look at is what classes do fit well online. I don't believe, spending vast majority of my professional career in the elementary schools, online for elementary is not the best. Now, will it work for some? Absolutely. As you get older, I think you could potentially have more online classes and those types of things. But I think we need to continue to diversify and grow and look at different ways in which we can educate our kids.
Thank you. Mr. Willett?
Can you repeat that question again?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Has the pandemic and its effect on education made you think more broadly about ways to improve our school system? For instance, continuing to use internet platforms for virtual learning for students who so choose?
Missing things.
I think it has made us life a little different in our educational system. And as Brian said, for elementary school, I think it would be somewhat difficult because they need a little more attention. But as we get older, I think you could go to an online platform. We're in the 21st century, and the things are moving through the internet. Kids get most of their information from the internet. If you go into higher education, most of the time there's not someone there to hold your hand. You have the internet, and you're going off on your own path. But again, kids are thinking out of the box right now. So there's no one size fits all. Some people can do the internet thing. Some folks can't do it. We need to understand who can and who cannot, and make it work for those that can. But I say the internet is the way to go. I think our South Kitsap school system was taken by surprise because of that. They were not used to distant education. And distant education, it's pretty much a network, a platform. So that's my point.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke?
First of all, I believe that there was a lot of learning that took place, difficult for parents and teachers to do online learning and not in-person learning. So I know some school districts are dropping their online base because those teachers will be now in the classroom. So I think it's important to understand, if you're going to keep both platforms, you have to have the staff to be able to do that. With that said, I have 3 grandchildren. My youngest grandson is introverted, learns well at home, is an excellent student, but struggles sometimes social and emotionally at school. So I think for him, it's advantageous. My junior and my sophomore granddaughter and grandson couldn't wait to get back to school 3 days, because social and emotional things for them played a valuable part in their educational success. So can we do both of them with the financial and the staff we have right now? If we can, then I think we need to offer that. And South Kitsap has had that for quite some time.
Thank you. Mr. Burk?
Pandemic was I don't think anybody really saw that coming. And the 14 days to slow the curve ended up being 18 months. Now, no teacher enjoyed staying home and trying to do online learning, and it was no fault of their own. But online learning, for the vast majority, was a disaster. And I think it'll be time will tell us how big a disaster it really was. So many of the kids were so distracted, and I think the amount of money that we pay per student in the facilities that we have, we need to utilize them. These kids get one shot at growing up. And I think the school that we have provided them, and the facilities provided them, are world class, and we need to take advantage of them. There's more to just learning than reading the book. There's social interactions. There's teachers that are paying attention to different students and understanding their needs. There's so many things. The suicide rate amongst the teenage community was through the roof from what I'm hearing. And I think that we need to get our kids back to school, and I'm sure the parents will agree with me.
Thank you. And next question. What would you do as a board member to improve the educational experience of our students? And I have, let's see who's first. Mr. Willett is first.
What would I do to enhance the students'
educational experience?
Educational experience. Well, first I would look at the student, the system itself, and say, okay, and make sure the students are placed where they should be. It's not a matter of fit, of where they should be and where they can get the best out of what they're doing. So like, as we talked earlier, we talked about the independent learning. Now, some introverted kids love online school. They love it because they don't want the social interaction. Now, I experienced with my son, who was one of the gifted and talented students. He refused to go off to the college during the day because he wanted the social interaction at school. So he did not want to go to the community college student. He wanted to stay at school because he wanted the social stuff. So he got the best out of it because he's got to stay at school and do it stuff. those that need to go off and do other things should be able to do that. And we as administrators, we need to understand the needs of our students.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke?
Yes, ma'am. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What would you do as a board member to improve the educational experience of our students?
Well, first of all, if elected, I would recommend to the board as soon as possible that we have a student board member represented the students on the board. We had one in the past. We haven't had one since. Those student board members brought a lot to the board of the needs and desires of the students. So I think that's very important. Listen to the students. The other thing is it's important to understand as a governing team, listen to the superintendent, what he or she feels, and staff, what is important for the best well-rounded curriculum that our students can have to be successful. So each and every student has that opportunity or a pathway to succeed. As a board member, I would attend PTA, PTSO, and PAC meetings at the high school and listen to parents and community members and find out what they and their students are asking for the school district to provide, and me particularly as a board member, so I represent them well.
Thank you. And Mr. Burk?
I would want to make sure that they have technology that's suitable for the 21st century. I think like Hubert and Christopher said that the kids like the internet, they like technology. And I think if we provide cutting edge technology and we work with some of the Microsofts and those kinds of companies and find some cutting edge technology, I think it would help with the students. I think they want to be involved in the 21st century and doing the things that we never did. And that's this new technology. And I think it's going to be really critical over the next 10 to 15 years that we as a school board see the future and implement it and provide it to our students.
Thank you. And Mr. Pickard?
Yes. First of all, I believe board members should get into the classroom, see what's going on, see what the students and the staff are doing so that you have a firsthand understanding of that. Interact with students, you just go up for, or plan it ahead of time in that time, but go up and talk to kids at all levels. I, as a principal, did that all the time with my students, sitting at lunch or around at recess, those types of things. Communication and collaboration is huge. It's got to go on. And that's with everybody. That's with not only the students, but the staff, community, parents, and really just everyone. And I do want to salute the current board because they just did recently select 2 South Kitsap High School students to be board reps. And I think that's critical because we can hear from them firsthand what's going on, what are the issues, what can we as a board do to help support them in their learning.
Perfect. Thank you. Last question. I think it'll be our last question, judging by the time. How would you address the new CDC guidelines for masking in public school? Would masks only be required for those that haven't yet been vaccinated? And how would this work? And let's see, first is Mr. Lemke.
So I think throughout the pandemic, what we learned is, and I think it's valuable, is to listen to the science, we as board members and the school district who are going to house almost 8,900 students, our first responsibility is to make sure they're safe every day so they can learn and they don't have to worry about any type of disease, if you would, or any type of things that would hurt them while they're in the school environment. Mask right now at the state level, I believe the state superintendent of public instruction says school districts, kids are coming back to school and masks will not be required. we as a school district will need to make that decision. But I think the decision is we should follow the science and make sure our students are safe from any type of hazard that would come into the environment of that classroom to prevent them from learning and jeopardize their safety.
Thank you. Mr. Burke.
I would follow the CDC guidelines. I would prefer that masks weren't required. I know that parents are very concerned that some of the talk has been that students that are vaccinated won't have to wear a mask and students that aren't vaccinated will, and they have to be segregated. I'm totally against that. I think that all students should be treated equally and fairly. So it is going to be somewhat controversial. I think there's a lot that the board's going to have to understand. They're going to have to look at the science, look at the data, look at the evidence, make some tough decisions. But I prefer, and I think from what I've read and studied, that I don't think masks will be required to have a safe environment in the school. But we'll have to follow the CDC guidelines, and I'm hopeful that students will not have to wear masks.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard?
I agree that we need to follow the CDC, follow the science. We also need to take into account our state and local health officials, getting guidance from them as far as what the best thing to do is. I think we'd all prefer not to have masks. However, we need to follow what the experts are telling us. South Kitsap School District currently has policy on vaccinations. Obviously not for COVID-19, but they have policies and to deal with and practices to deal with when parents or families decide not to have certain vaccinations and those type of things. I think we fall under that because it's very, very similar. I know about these policies and procedures because I oversaw them when I was at the district office in the last 3 years of my career. So follow what we've got, listen to CDC and the experts and follow the science.
Thank you. Mr. Willett.
I would not like seeing students wearing masks, but I think we have to follow the CDC guidelines. And I think this, and the local guidelines. And I'm assuming that they should fall in line with what the CDC has to say. And it's got to be a one size. If you're going to have masks, and everyone should wear a mask, because it would be almost impossible to say who has a card and who don't have a card. So then you're kind of like separating people. I don't think that's a really good thing to do. I think we should follow the local guidelines, follow the school guidelines, and if things get out of hand, then it needs to be dealt with. I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. But for the most part, I would prefer our students not wearing masks. But if the science dictates that we should be, then we should. And we should follow the CDC guidelines and take advantage of it. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, we're going to begin our closing statements now. Each of you will be given 1 1/2 minutes to make a final statement. The first person will be Mr. Burke.
Well, I want to say thank you for all you that have tuned in to listen to us. I'm sitting together with 4 wonderful gentlemen that all are very capable. And if you don't vote for me, I will have no problem with you voting for any of the other 3 because they're gentlemen and most of them they're all scholars. And the school board can't go wrong with the people that have stepped up to do the hard work, to give the time to be a school board member. I would like an opportunity, if you feel that I'm your man, the person that you would want on the board to represent you, then please vote for me and tell your friends to vote. I do bring some expertise in school construction, like I've mentioned before. I'm a business owner. I'm from the outside and have possibly a new perspective. I would like an opportunity. I think there's new schools that need to be built, and I think that I could help in that area. I think there's some real critical subjects that we didn't get a chance to speak to tonight, and I'm sure there's a lot of people pulling their hair at the moment, wanting to know why we didn't get some of those questions asked tonight that are much more controversial. And I would like an opportunity to be on the board to represent some of those issues and to represent the parents. I think that we have great blue collar community, and I want to make sure that the trades are available. I think we have great trade schools, and I want to just make them better and make sure the opportunities are there for the students. Thank you and good night, and hopefully you vote for me.
Thank you. Mr. Pickard?
Thank you. In closing, again, I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this opportunity. I agree with Dave in that it's nice to be able to see people and have a conversation, and we stayed civil. That's good. I knew we would. I want to thank all of the candidates here, and really the other ones that couldn't join us for whatever reason. I think the fact that we have 7 people running for a position in the school board is fantastic. We know that in the past that hasn't been the case, and so we have some diverse ideas and thoughts and choices for our community to make. And I just want to salute the 3 of you others that are here, as well as the others that have put their name into the hat. I just want to restate the fact that I have 38 years in public education. I know the inner workings. I know what's needed to help students and staff be successful, which makes our schools, our community successful. My experiences and skill sets set me apart. The variety of boards that I have been in leadership roles for, I know makes me a unique candidate and a good match of skills and knowledge. And once again, League of Women Voters, thank you for giving us all this opportunity and be able to share with our community.
Thank you. Mr. Willett?
First, I'd like to thank the Women's League for having us tonight, and to get to see the folks that are standing up for a position to help the community. And they have different ideas and different approaches as things. And I think that's a good thing. It kind of says that, hey, we kind of care about our community because we're going to step up to this. You know, we touched on a lot of subjects tonight, and I just want to talk about a little. First, I think diversity, I want to go back to diversity. Diversity should be and can be worked on because, bear in mind, we are referring to an all-inclusive when we talk diversity. All-inclusive operation, be it school, work, and play, lend itself to different ideas and thoughts and approaches towards approaching problems. So if we all learn to get along, I think it would make our life much easier. It would be a reward for the students. And I say, on that note, I'm saying, look, I'm running because I think that I can learn something. I know we've been doing this for some folks have a lot of experience and some have none. But every once in a while, you have to step out of the box. You know, you have to bring something in, even if it don't do it, it's going to shake up and open the minds of those that are already there. Because every once in a while, you need to make it say, hey, look, man, we went to sleep. Let's bring this back in. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am. I would echo to all the other candidates that are here and the ones that are not here. Thank you for taking the time to wanting to represent your community as a school board member. I'd also thank the League of Women Voters. What I truly believe is very necessary is for as many voters to turn out in this election as possible. We don't want 1/3 of the community electing school board members because they are so valuable to this community and they have an effect on what this community will look like 15 years from now. I believe we need facilities in the future. We probably need some facilities right now. I think we need to adjust those. First of all, with a small success with the capital levy, and listen to the facilities review board. I bring leadership, past experience to a board that's inexperienced and a superintendent who barely has 2 years being a superintendent. This will help the board unify, become a governing team, and run the district with a governing team with the one employee, the superintendent, and that is so impossible. And last, I would echo that the community, all voters, 30,000 plus, are valuable for our students to learn from our community. They support students. They support by using their privilege to vote. And I want to make sure the Women Voter League knows that I really appreciate the word get the vote out. We're going to have a good school board members, because it was wonderful listening to these gentlemen tonight. They would represent South Kitsap schools in a very, very special way. So I really appreciate that. But I offer experience.
Time is
and
up,
there's
sir.
no
Gentlemen, you all for taking the time to join us. We feel a well-informed electorate is critical to our democracy, and events such as this are one way for us to achieve that goal. Primary election day is August 3rd. Ballots should be mailed by July 16th and need to be returned to a ballot box or postmarked by August 3rd. Information on candidates and issues can be accessed at vote411.org or in your voter pamphlet, which you should have received in the mail by now. On
Yes.
behalf of the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, I would like to encourage everyone to vote, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Good night.